Hello again, everybody. A few days ago, I had this person on YouTube ask a question about how come we turn the log backwards on the mill, and they had mentioned they'd never seen anybody turn the log backwards on the sawmill before. Well, the reason why, these little mills are light duty mills. They're not made for a lot of beating and banging that you see on these other mills on YouTube. That just will not take the shock loading that the big mills will take. For example, the knees here, you know, they're light duty, very small compared to the larger mills on YouTube. You can see the set works here. The set works, the knees are really small. As a matter of fact, Velsaw recommends sawing the log and turning it backwards and sliding it forward back onto the carriage. And I will show a couple pages out of the owner's operator's manual for this mill, and that is exactly what they'll tell you in those instructions. And you can see in this shot right here of the carriage and the small, very small carriage wheels. Compare this mill right here and this carriage and those knees to some of the mills that you watch on YouTube. Mills like Frickin' Jeep has, Mark Galici, and Gary Wilder's Big American Mill. Look at those and compare those to this. And you can see this is a very light duty mill. It just will not take those heavy logs turning against those little bitty knees. And that's okay. We use this mill accordingly. We know it's a light duty mill. We don't try to overload it. We don't put, you know, huge logs on it that's gonna mess it up. We try to treat it like a light duty mill. And if you take a sawyer that's been used to a heavy mill, they'll tear this mill to pieces because they're used to the robustness of the parts and the strength of the materials in those older mills. But this mill does fine. This is what it was designed for. It was designed for the farmer. He could take his tractor and hook it up to this mill and saw his own lumber. He could build a barn, he could build a shed, and these mills were designed to be, you know, sewed and used on the farm. And they do a really good job for that purpose. This is not a production mill. You know, we're not going to get major production out of this, and that's not what it's designed for, and it never was. The pieces and parts are really small compared to other mills. Anyways, that's why we turn the log backwards, folks. Okay, moving on to another question we had from Rick Toohey. Rick asked about the scale on this mill. This scale is not original to the mill. It's not a factory part. My middle son built this scale, and it works really well. It consists of a cable that comes off the front of the carriage, runs back. There's a pulley right here. It wraps this pulley and comes up a scale. Here's the marker for the scale. Comes up to the top of the scale and goes over a pulley. Comes down the other side. Comes down to the other side. Down here, let's see, get you down here to it. Down here to another pulley. It runs to the back of the carriage, and there's an adjustment right here if you need to adjust. If we need to adjust it at some point, there's an adjustment right here with a turnbuckle, and I have some markings here. Kind of resembles the old Woodmiser days when all the math was done for me. So when I'm cutting 2-inch boards, you know, I can automatically drop. There's no math. The math's already done on the scale. So if I go to 14 to 12, I just drop it to the next line, and I have a 2-inch board. So when I'm cutting 1-inch boards, I use the handle. This is set for 1-inch boards, so each pull advances the carriage 1 inch. So I use this for my 1-inch boards even. You know, if I pull it twice, it's going to be more than 2 inches because of the thickness of the blade. The math is not done here on multiple pulls, but it is done here. These are measured out, and it takes in consideration the width of the blade. But that's the scale, and it was made from a yardstick, some cable, and some small pulleys and various nuts and bolts. And I do down here have the blade position of the blade marked. So when I'm doing a face cut to clean up a log, I could just run it up to the blade where the blade's marked, and that will be a good face cut because I know where the blade's at, and it's marked here on the end feed. And the same here, I can go out, say the scale is sitting on 10, set the scale to 10, and that tells me that from the distance to the knee to the blade is 10, and that would be on the inside of the mark. And those marks I use daily when I'm running the mill, and that makes it easier for me and quicker for me to run. It just works out better for me. And anyways, that's the details about the scale. And getting this thing to saw right didn't happen overnight. It took a little while, and I'd used Wood-Mizer sawmills for about 30 years. You know, I was used to a Wood-Mizer, and I'd helped work these circle mills several times throughout my life. My uncle owned one, and I used to help out at antique tractor shows on a couple of mills. But it took a while to get this mill sawing right. You know, I kept measuring and kept looking for the problems. I'd ask people, and I finally got her dialed in, and it does a pretty good job for an old mill. You know, it keeps me away from the box stores. It keeps me in lumber and keeps me in projects, and I can't complain for what it is. It's been a pretty good mill.